Hello, everyone. Nowadays, we have a huge variety of different products, all very tasty, available 24/7, even at night. If before there were significantly fewer of them, now there are so many temptations. And besides the markets that are open around the clock, there's also delivery, so you don't even have to leave your home. And especially, the world is overflowing with sweets, always ready to comfort you at any moment. Of course, you want to eat all of this uncontrollably, and it can have consequences. Consequences in the form of excess weight. That's why the field of weight management is so popular. Various diets, psychological approaches, and how to become slim. However, all these efforts can be pointless if certain conditions aren't met. And you can actually see these conditions in your horoscope. In the horoscope, Venus rules the second house. And we can look at the quality of your Venus in the horoscope. And if, for example, it is afflicted or weak, then of course there will be problems. Next, what is happening with it? And of course, Jupiter is also the Karaka, significator of the second house. And if there are not very good planets in the second house, then of course things will not be good at all. And in the horoscope, the second and seventh houses are connected through their ruler. Both the second and seventh houses always work together as a pair. Venus is always the ruler of these houses, as the natural Karaka, regardless of the ascendant sign. And these houses are in dusthanas from each other, at a distance of 6 to 8. Dusthanas are those houses that are meant to support us through solving problems. In other words, problems are meant to be solved, but most often we create them ourselves, and even more often we do so with our own minds. The seventh house represents our relationships with other people. These are partnerships, sexual, romantic, and business relationships, all types of material relationships. And what logically follows from this? So, based on the connection between the second and seventh houses, if our relationships help us find balance in life, in food, in pleasures, and make our lives easier in some way, then we have resourceful relationships. Venus is always a resource. In that case, everything is fine with our second house. We don't have an increased appetite, not to mention eating disorders. There could be some kind of excess of food, or on the contrary, a decreased appetite, or some distorted taste preferences. Because everything is fine with the seventh house. The rear is covered, the second house is always connected to the seventh. And yes, of course, especially women always need to eat what she wants. And the question is, it's a sensitive question. Yes, what does she want? Why does she want cake at night? For example, and ideally, she shouldn't restrict herself in anything. It's better to end up with health and weight problems. Yes, but to preserve your mental health. Often girls say, if I don't restrict myself in anything, oh my God, everything will go wrong. Yes, and my weight will be terrible. Yes, that's possible if your seventh house is unstable because the second house is Venus, the moon, it's feminine energy, it's pleasure. And if you have no pleasures at all, only displeasures in the seventh house, then where do you go? You go to the second house and get at least some satisfaction there. If you are not in harmony, not in balance in your relationships with other people, if this area constantly brings you distress and trouble, conflicts with partners, crises in relationships, then of course all this disruption goes into the second house. And indeed, you want to compensate for it. For example, we've spent a lot of energy on relationships. We had a fight, there was some kind of conflict. Either you have complaints or you feel like something is missing. What do you do? Because these are communicating vessels and the energy there is the same. So you go to the second house and try to compensate. For example, by eating more food, either adding sweets or stopping altogether. There are other issues entirely and other processes start to happen, but most often what I see in my practice is, of course, when women eat to cope with relationship problems. Either you invest yourself in the relationship, get nervous, and don't receive adequate feedback, and this leads to exactly these kinds of results. Yes, of course, you can spend money, time, and energy on diets, and maybe it will even give some kind of result. But most often it will be hard won and in the end only temporary. But if you want to have a beautiful figure, good skin, and look great in the long run, yes, this is the second house. So you need to build relationships with other people, and especially with those close to you, through the seventh house. As soon as this condition is met, the expected comfort will come in the second house, and you won't have the urge to overeat. The second house is the eighth from the seventh, it protects that house. And if there is hunger in relationships, then of course there will also be hunger in the second house. And then certain pathologies and distortions will occur in the second house. It's not always something serious. Most people simply overeat. Nevertheless, the solution, regardless of how serious the situation is, lies in proper energy exchange. You still need to go to the seventh house, establish separation, set distance and boundaries with other people, and organize these relationships. Saturn is responsible for this, for organizing relationships with other people and making an effort. Then everything automatically comes into balance. You eat what you want when you want, and you won't crave that kind of food as much for the simple reason that you will no longer have an outflow of energy in the seventh house. That's the simple formula. I wish for you to use it in your daily life.